You likely clicked on this video because you've been able to make some really good progress in your self-improvement and stopping your bad habits, but for whatever reason, that only seems to be able to last for maybe 2 weeks or even 4 months at max. And no matter how many habits you add to your morning routine or how consistent you try to stay, after some time, for whatever reason, you just keep defaulting back to your loser self. Now, in the next 10 to 20 minutes, I'm going to explain exactly why that is and most importantly, what you can actually do about it so that you can start making consistent progress that lasts for a long time when it comes to overcoming your bad habits. Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name's Christian. I've been helping young men break free from the bad habits for the past 3 or so years now. Before that, I was able to conquer a few of my own bad habits. I'm currently over 1,000 days porn free, and I make these videos because I enjoy it. Now, as I said before, the problem is that you don't make progress, is that you can't sustain that progress. So in other words, you might get a 60 or a 90-day streak in whatever habit you're trying to add or whatever habit you're trying to remove. So maybe you're trying to get a 100-day nofap streak, or you're trying to completely remove it for good, or you're trying to just stay consistent with the gym, maybe go 4 times a week consistently. And you can do that for maybe around 2 or 3 weeks, even as I said, 4 to 6 months. But after some time, you just stop. You eventually relapse, or you eventually just miss a workout. And then for another week or another 2 months, you just can't get a good streak going, or you forget about it, or you give up. And that is very, very frustrating. And I can understand how frustrating that is. But before I tell you exactly why that happens, let's just quickly touch on this thing called the streak. So most of us have this goal of the streak, and I'm just going to keep it really simple. Lots of us have, let's say we want to do 100 days, whether that's we want to do 100 days porn free, or we want to do 100 days consistent in the gym, or you want to do 100 days with a screen time that's under 2 hours, or eating clean, or whatever it might be, whether it's removing a good habit, removing a bad habit, adding good habit, or just having a whole list of routines. Like maybe you have 5 bad habits you want to not doing, and you're doing it on a habit tracker or whatever, and you're just trying to stay consistent. So lots of us have this goal of, maybe a 30-day streak or 60-day streak or a 100-day streak. And I'm here to tell you that having this goal is very important, of wanting to essentially stop your bad habits. But one of the main things that is holding you back is caring so much about the streak. So one of the things I teach my guys that I work with a lot is, I don't care about your streak. And here's why. Let's say you have this goal of 100 days, which is a good goal to have because we all want to stop our bad habits. So we should have the goal of stopping our bad habits. And let's say, for example, just on average, you relapse every 30 days. So in 100 days, that would be 3 times, which means you relapse 3 out of 100 times, which means essentially you got 97%. Now, if that was a maths test, or that was a uni assignment, or that was any other quality or any other score or assessment in life that might be, educational related, you'd be quite stoked with that. You'd be pretty happy with 97%. That's pretty fucking good, man. Like 97%. But what happens is, you might go, as I said, 29 days and then good. And then you relapse on day 1, or you relapse on day 30. Which means you've done 29 and 30, as I said before, and you feel like a piece of shit because your self-worth is tied so heavily to having a perfect streak. And because you're so focused on not failing, guess what you do all the time? Not only do you, in your terms, fail, but those failures feel even heavier than they would if you adopted this alternative mindset that I'm going to share with you in 2 seconds. Because the thing about our brain, there's this part of our brain called the reticular activation system. You don't have to remember that name, but I'm just going to call it RAS. And basically, this thing's job is to take whatever you're thinking about all the time and just point it out to you. So if all you're thinking about is not failing your streak, then your brain's just going to focus on failing the streak all the time. And then that's when, trying to reach this 100 days feels like a full-time job. That's when breaking a bad habit just feels like a full-time job where all you're thinking about, there's so much mental capacity and mental energy going towards this streak. Now, if you don't want to feel like you're running uphill, because that's what this feels like, if you don't want to feel like you're running uphill and that you're always failing and all of this, what I would highly recommend, and this is what I teach my guys, is we don't want to focus on getting a perfect streak, or what we will call perfection. Because as the great Winston Churchill said, and I've got this quote on my wall up here, is perfection is another way to say perfection is paralysis. And I haven't even gotten into the topic of this video, but a main reason why you keep plateauing is you're paralyzed by this need to be perfect. So the opposite of that, or the alternative to that, is to focus on making progress. So focus on making progress. And what do I mean by progress? What I mean by progress is, okay, let's say we have a month, and in a month there's 28 days. And what I mean by that is it's just 7 days times 4 weeks. Like, obviously that's not a real month, but that's just what we're going with here. And let's say we have a period of 6 months. So you got month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they're all 28 days. They're all 28 days long. So 28, 28, 28, 28. And let's say you're just trying to stop watching porn, or you're trying to stop fapping or gooning or whatever. And let's say on month 1, you end up having 10 days where you don't fap. So that's your starting point. At least you know what your baseline is. So then on month 2, let's see if we can beat that 10. So then maybe you end up going to 12, and then maybe you end up going to 18, and then maybe you end up going to 24, and then maybe you do end up going to the full 28, or maybe now it's been 30 days since you fapped, and then maybe now it's been 36 days since you fapped, and then you end up going exponentially more and more higher and higher, where you're not even fapping or relapsing every month. Now it's every 2 months, and then it becomes every 5 months, and then it becomes every 6 months. And then what happens is this habit, or this bad habit, is no longer really part of your life anymore, where you don't even have to worry about the streak, because you now just have complete self-control over it. And that's simply because you didn't focus on perfection so much, but you just focused on making progress. Because here's the thing, this thing called failure, as guys, like, failure brings us a lot of shame. And it's completely understandable. But one of the things lots of us just don't realize about failures is failures are actually an investment to becoming our future self. So what I mean by that is every time you fail, there's an opportunity for you to learn why you failed, and then turn that learning lesson into some wisdom or some knowledge on how to not fail next time. You know, Michael Jordan used to say, who's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, he used to say that he never learned anything from a game that he won, which means where did he learn the most? Where did he improve the most? In the games where he lost, in the games that he failed. So as guys, we need to stop seeing failure as this bad thing, as this scary thing, as this thing we're trying to avoid, but actually start seeing it as an investment where if you win, or if you don't fail, you win, obviously. But if you fail, you still win. I spelled fail wrong. But if you fail, you still win. You know why? Because you have an opportunity to learn how to not fail next time. So in that case, you could say you're failing forwards. So what that means for NoFap, it's like, okay, you relapsed, or maybe let's use a different example, going to the gym. Let's say you stopped going to the gym. So maybe you went into a rut, and then you focus on, okay, what's the learning lesson? Let's grab the learning lesson. You've realized why. Okay, why did I fall into a rut? Was it because of this? Was it because of that? So then now you know, okay, if I want to avoid going to a rut next time, I manage the thing, or I focus on, improving the thing that took me into a rut. Maybe you realize you went into a rut because you had a big night with this particular group of friends. So now if you don't want to go into a rut again, one thing you can do is maybe don't go for a big night out, or stop seeing this group of friends who convinced you to go for a night out. And now you're mitigating one thing that contributes to you falling into a rut. And then in another month's time, you might go into another rut. And then you have another statistic or piece of data that will help you not go into a rut next time. So at the end of the day, what I'm talking about here is this thing called self-worth, which is basically how you feel about yourself, how confident you feel about yourself. And what I'm saying is, don't tie your self-worth or how you feel about yourself, whether you feel that you are awesome or not, don't tie that to the streak. So I want you to have a goal. I want you to have the goal of maybe you do want to get to 100 days porn free, or maybe you do just want to have complete self-control over it. But don't tie your sense of self-worth to achieving the goal. Tie your sense of self-worth to progress, or grabbing the lesson from those failures. Because even when you do fail, you're failing forwards, and then those failures become so far and far and far between that now we can say you have self-control. But let's start talking about the main reason why you keep plateauing, because at the moment you still see yourself as a loser, and we're going to be talking about exactly why that could be problematic to you keep plateauing or not being able to go past a certain point. So let's think about it like a video game, and you have your character, and your character will have some stats. So let's say this is your character. He's got a Viking hat or something, and you go into you might go into the screen where you can see your profile and you might be able to see your stats. So maybe you've got like your attack stats, you might have your defense stats, and you might have like your speed stat. And in this game, basically what you do is you go around and you defeat opponents in order to level up. And then at the end of the game, you beat the boss dragon. And then maybe every time you win, you get some money or something, or some gems or whatever, and that allows you to max out your stats or upgrade your stats. And let's say maybe you're level 50 or something. And then at the moment you've been able to really just like sweep through the game and get through the game quickly. Why? Because you've been able to max out your attack stats. And then you've also been able to max out your speed stats. So let's say you've got like 99 out of 100. 99 out of 100. And then, but maybe here, you're only like here in defense. So maybe you're only 7 out of 100. So with these 99 attack and speed stats, you've been able to get to maybe boss number 50 out of 100, or maybe even at boss number 75 out of 100 in terms of levels in the game. But you've plateaued. You can't get past level 75. You have awesome attack, you have awesome speed, so you're really a sweeper. You just smash through the game. But as soon as these stronger bosses now, these level 76 bosses hit you, you're just KO'd. You're just dead. You respawn, you have to do the level again. And you've been trying to beat this level for, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, and you just can't beat it. It's super frustrating. And that's because you can't make this any higher. You can't make this any higher. And you will stay at that level you are. You will always stay at the level you are until you level up this, until you max out this. So, and now what you do is you start adding up to this. And then what happens is, okay, maybe you get to level 78. And then when you get to here, you get to level 82. And you keep going. And then now you're able to actually beat those higher levels, where before you just couldn't go past that certain point because of your stats. And this is exactly how self-improvement works, where most of us guys, or most people, is what we do is we become really good at a few things, but there's usually one thing that's holding us back. One stat that's maybe stuck on stat 7 because maybe we don't even know about that stat, or maybe we just haven't focused on that stat because these ones are easy to level up. Like these other ones are easy to level up. So we max them out and become really good at them, but then we plateau because we don't have this defense stat. Because, for example, and I'll say like these attack and speed stats, that will be things such as your morning routine, your mindset, all of these types of things where you're just grinding and all these things, which are awesome. You need to have level 99. But if you're still level 7 in this defense stat, there's only so far you can go before you do need to level this up in order to make that progress. Now, there's this thing called your self-image. And very simply, your self-image basically just means the way you see yourself, so how you perceive yourself. And in this scenario, your self-image is this defense that is stuck on level 7 and is a thing that has caused you to plateau because you have really good habits. You know exactly what you need to do. You have all the knowledge. You know what to do. Maybe you've inserted all the porn blockers, for example, or you've read Atomic Habits and you know that you need to put your shoes next to your bed, or have your gym clothes laid out the night before, and all these things. And you've been able to get really good streaks. But as we said, it's plateaued. You can't go past a certain point. The reason why is because of this thing called self-image. Your self-image likely is stuck on 7, or maybe it's even stuck on 47. And it's just not at the point it needs to be in order for you to be able to start making that progress again and to go up and up and up. Now, this thing called self-image, as I said, it's the way you see yourself. It's how you see yourself. And very interestingly, not only is it the way you see yourself, but the way you see yourself. So let's say you see yourself as a loser, or you see yourself as not confident, or you see yourself as undisciplined. We just automatically think that the way we see ourselves is the way that other people see ourselves. And then quite interestingly is because let's say you see yourself as unconfident, or you see yourself as a bit of a loser or whatever, you will just automatically think, and this is true, just think about it for 2 seconds. You just automatically think that everyone else thinks you're a loser. And then what does that mean? That means because you see yourself as a loser and you expect that other people see you as a loser, then it would feel weird to start acting like a winner, because you would think, okay, these people are going to think I'm arrogant, or they're not used to this version of me. It's a bit weird. So then what does that cause you to do? It causes you to not only you see yourself as a loser, but you think that other people see you as a loser, which means how do you show up? You will show up as a loser. which means that even in your bedroom, you might be doing push-ups every day and no one really sees it. Or you might get a really good streak for a few weeks, but maybe only one of your friends is also on self-improvement. Maybe he's the only friend that knows about it, and you've been making all these good habits. You've been watching lots of really good YouTube videos. Maybe you're listening to, Andrew Huberman podcasts or Chris Williamson podcasts or something along those lines. But when you go back to, your old group of friends or something, you still feel like that loser because they know you as that loser, and they always have, because you've always done your bad habits together. Maybe you've always just played video games together and that's all you've done, or you always go out together and get wasted because that's just how they know you. And then you keep showing up as that. Now, the interesting thing about the self-image, and basically what I'm talking about, and basically what I'm trying to say here, is you will basically achieve to the extent of your self-image. And this thing called a plateau, it's no matter, even if all these other stats are maxed out, if your self-image is down here, this is the furthest you're going to go. So you could be a gun at every other area or all these other stats when it comes to your self-improvement or breaking a bad habit. But if your self-image is at a level 17 or level 18, that is the highest you will ever go, because you will only be able to achieve to the extent of your self-interest. You will only be able to achieve to the extent of your self-image. And there's actually this book. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. I recommend this book. Give it a read. But it's basically all about self-image. I'm not sure, you can probably find a summary of it on YouTube or something, or online, or listen to the audiobook. But the author, Maxwell Maltz, from this book, inside this book, he says, one of the quotes is, he says that the way you see yourself is the most important factor when it comes to your successes or your failures in life. And this guy, if you read this book, he's studied self-image for a very, very long time. So self-image is the most important factor when it comes to your successes or failures in life. So what that actually means is, the stat you need to focus on is defense. Now, again, that doesn't mean you don't focus on your attack and your speed or your habits or optimizing your friendship group or whatever it might be. But it means that the foundation, the starting point, or the most important thing to focus on. So you might know about this thing called the 80-20 principle, where 80% of the results in life, or 80% of the progress you'll ever make will come from 20% of actions, a very small amount of actions. This self-image is that 20% that will cause the 80% of growth in your life when it comes to any area of your life, but most importantly, or more specifically, your bad habits, or conquering your bad habits, or developing good habits and becoming the man you want to become. Because if you see yourself as a loser, or if you see yourself as someone who's undisciplined, or if you see yourself as someone who's confident, then no matter how many good habits you add to your morning routine, or how many YouTube videos you add, or how many cold approaches you do to try and up your confidence when it comes to speaking to girls, for example, if you still see yourself as the loser or the weirdo, you will always eventually snap back to being that person, no matter how long your streak is. So this is why I said before, if you have that 99-day streak and you still see yourself as a loser, or you still see yourself as a gooner, for example, if you relapse or if you fap on day 100, that failure is going to hurt even more. Why? Because you see yourself as a gooner instead of seeing yourself as someone who's disciplined. And yes, guess what? It's not going to fix it overnight. Even if you see yourself as disciplined, or even if you see yourself as someone with really good self-control, or you're confident, or all of these things, you're still going to fail. But the failure is not going to hurt as much, and you're going to fail forward. And at the end of the day, you're not going to fail as often or as hard, because there's this thing called be, do, have. Be, do, have. And very simply, what that means is, if you be the person who you want to be, which is self-image, so you see yourself as the person you want to be, then it'll be easier for you to be able to do the things that that person does, which then will make it easier for you to have the things that person would have. So what that means is, if you want to, let's say you can view do as a goal. So let's say you want to have complete self-control over yourself, over your impulses. You don't want to, have these ADHD tendencies where you're just always on your phone, just scrolling on Instagram for 10 hours a day and just just searching for softcore porn or whatever. You need to first see yourself as the person who no longer does that, who has self-control, who wakes up and the first thing you do is meditate or something, or you journal, or you go to the gym. You need to start seeing yourself as that, because what does that do? It makes it easier to do those things because you see yourself as that person. And yes, even if you don't see yourself as that person, you will still be able to do them. But as you have experienced, you'll only be able to go a certain point. You will eventually plateau if you don't first be. If you don't first see yourself as the person who deserves, first of all, the outcome, the have and the do, and also the person who just does those things. What does that person think? What does that person look like? How do they show up? All of these things, you have to start seeing yourself as that person. And yes, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel inauthentic. It's going to feel even cringe. And you'll have people who have known you for your entire life who think, well, this is a different you. And you'll even have friends saying, well, we miss the old you. Like, let's say you stop going out, you stop partying as much. Your friends are going to say, we miss the old you. But guess what? That's because you are no longer the old you. You no longer see yourself as the old you. You no longer see yourself as the old you. And you just have to own it. You just have to accept that, yep, this is the new me. I am no longer this loser who has a 0 defense stat. I am a winner. I am a winner. I am someone with self-control. I'm someone with self-respect. I'm someone who wakes up early. I am someone who works hard, and I'm someone who's focused. I'm someone who pursues more in life, who doesn't just want a life where I'm just scrolling on Instagram all day, playing videos all day. I'm someone who pursues purpose, who pursues contributing back to the world and all of these things. You're never going to be able to do them for a sustained period of time unless you see yourself as that person first. And as I said, it's going to feel inauthentic. It's going to feel weird. And of course it is, because think about this. Right now, you're likely quite undisciplined. And the reason for that is you've practiced being undisciplined for the past 20 years or the past 25 years. You've had a lot of practice in being disciplined. What you don't have a lot of practice in with this self-image is maybe you only have 1 year's worth of practice when it comes to discipline. Of course, it's going to be much easier for you to feel like a loser. And of course, it's going to be even more uncomfortable for you to feel like a winner, or to act like a winner, or to act like someone who's disciplined. Why? Because you just haven't practiced it enough. Now, if you practiced feeling like a winner, which I mean by that, if you practice this self-image by simply reinforcing it, by simply reminding yourself of who you want to become and just saying, I am this person, especially when it isn't true yet, because that just means you're practicing it. The more practice you have, as I said, you've had 20 years worth of practice being a loser. Now you need more practice of being him, or of being the man who succeeds and wins and gets all the things you want. You just need to practice it more. And the way to do that is you need to be. You need to see yourself as that person. Be to have. And this basically goes back to this framework that you'll probably hear me talk about a lot, is your thoughts control your emotions, which control your actions, which control your outcomes. So if you're not getting the outcomes you want in life, it's because you're not taking a certain action, which comes down to a way you feel. Maybe you feel unmotivated, which comes down to a thought you have, for example. So if you want to change all of this, you change your thoughts. And the most important thoughts you can change are the thoughts you have about yourself. Do you see yourself as someone who always loses, as someone who has never succeeded in life, as someone who's always come last, someone who's always picked last? Well, if you keep thinking that, then yeah, that's going to be a reality, because that's what's going to lead to those outcomes. We're going to start thinking the things that are useful to us, even if they're not true yet. One last analogy I'll use is, let's take this elastic band. And this elastic band represents your self-image. So right now what happens is we're extending this elastic band, which basically means, okay, you're doing good habits and you are going to the gym now, and you've installed a porn blocker so you can't watch porn, and you've inserted screen time on your phone so you're not scrolling on your phone all day. But what happened is there's only so far that this elastic band can go. It can only go this far before inevitably and eventually just snapping back to where it was. And you can only pull it so far before it just keeps snapping back. And this is what is happening with this plateau. You're going to make so much progress, but on day 60, you can't go past day 60 because this is your self-image. You can only go this far. What you need to be able to get a bigger elastic band, an upgraded elastic band that can stretch even further and further. And even that elastic band will have a point where it snaps back, and you will find where that point is. You'll find where that snapback point is. And then what you do there is you realize, okay, now I've found a new limit in my self-image. Now it's time to upgrade that even more and more. And if you want to summarize this, we can just say that the 20% of actions that's going to contribute to the 80% of results you're looking for is basically just keep finding bigger elastic bands. That's your goal. Just keep finding bigger elastic bands. Did you just see that? Elastic band went backwards somehow. What was I saying? But yeah, find bigger elastic bands, and it is going to feel weird, and it is going to feel inauthentic, and it's going to feel just yucky and awkward and all this. And good. If it feels that way, then good. You're doing something right. And I will say that if it feels easy, if it feels fun, if it feels all la-di-da, you're not doing something right. You're doing something wrong. Self-improvement and overcoming bad habits, as you've experienced, is difficult. It feels like shit. It feels hard. It feels uncomfortable, and it feels awkward. And I'm here to tell you that it's supposed to feel that way. If it feels that way, you're not doing anything wrong. You don't suck. You're doing it right. It's not supposed to be easy, and you know this. Why? Because if it was easy, you wouldn't need to watch a YouTube video about it. You wouldn't be on YouTube right now watching me if it was easy. So enjoy the suffering. One of my greatest principles, I'll just end on this, is life is suffering. And what that means is everything in life comes with suffering. And let's say in life, you just have a decision to make. You either go left or you go right. Both paths, left or right, will come with suffering, no matter what you do. So for example, overcoming a nofap streak comes with suffering because it's really hard. But so too does staying addicted to porn. There's a lot of suffering in that. So what that means is no matter which path you choose, there will be suffering, which means right now you're trying to stop watching porn, or you're trying to stay consistent in the gym, or you're trying to stop scrolling on, or stop watching YouTubes for 10 hours a day, YouTube videos for 10 hours a day. That's going to come with suffering, which means that when you do experience suffering, it does not mean you're doing anything wrong. It probably means you're doing it right, or it likely means you're doing it right. So when you encounter suffering and when you encounter failure, you don't even have to see it as anything. Just see it as this means I'm doing it right. This is just another level I'm conquering. You're playing a video game and you're just at the next level. You're versing the next boss. That is the suffering. You just have to embrace that boss, because if it was easy, it wouldn't be fun. If you could just sweep through this game and finish it in half an hour, you have no reason to enjoy it. You wouldn't buy the next game. If this was game 1 and you finished it in half an hour and it was super easy, you wouldn't buy game 2, would you? And that's what life is. And each of these self-images, each of these elastic bands, the one that's over there, that's game 1. And maybe you're on game 3, or maybe you're finished game 3. You need to buy game 4 by upgrading your elastic band. And yes, that's going to come with suffering. But so too will staying at elastic band game 3. So thank you for watching. That's everything you need to know about self-image for today. If you like some personalized guidance on overcoming any bad habit that you would like, just go down into the description. I have a few links there. I have a free link to a free Discord server with the guys that I work with and other guys who watch my content, such as yourself. Go in there. You can join it for free. There'll also be a link down there if you want to book in a call with me to work one-on-one with me, even just one call or over a few sessions or over a few weeks or whatever. Just look into the description. There'll be a bunch of links there. There'll be both free things and both paid things, depending on how fast you want to go and all of these things. I've got free resources. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Feel free to comment the most helpful thing in this video that you learned, and I'll see you next time.